A. Describing festivals. Read this short text about a Kenyan cultural festival.
Mombasa Carnival.
The Mombasa Carnival falls in November each year in this Kenyan city. People from all over the country and the world travel to Mombasa to participate in the festivities. The carnival features people dressed in spectacular costumes, parading through the city's streets, performing traditional songs and dances to celebrate their cultures. Promoting integration within this multicultural region remains the focus of the carnival. There are big celebrations on New Year's Day. New Year's Day is celebrated in many ways. The festival celebrates the new year. It was a public holiday, and everyone was in a celebratory mood.
The festival is held in March. The festivities go on for days. There was a festive mood in the village during the spring holiday.
The parade in the town square was a very colourful spectacle. On the anniversary of the battle, soldiers paraded through the streets. The parade is always very spectacular.
Everyone in the village attends a big feast in the evening. During the national holiday, there is a whole week of feasting and celebrations.
Many of the customs have their origin in ancient ceremonies. A ceremonial procession goes through the streets of the city.
The festival is a time of renewal. Each year, the festival renews the national spirit of the people.
The celebrations at the end of the war brought renewed hope to the people.
B. Other words and phrases connected with festivals.
A lot of people are very superstitious, especially about numbers and colours.
The festival celebrated the centenary of the country's independence. The festival celebrated the bicentenary of the country's independence.
The Rio de Janeiro Carnival is always a very flamboyant and raucous event.
The Festival of the Dead is very sombre and atmospheric. It can be traced back to pagan times.
The annual holiday commemorates all those who died in the country's civil war.
A. Specialist terms for talking about language.
Syntax. The grammar and word order. Different languages express modality in different ways. English does it with modal verbs like must, could, and should. Phonology. The sound system, that is, pronunciation and intonation. All languages have phonemes, such as b and v. English has 10 diphthongs. Lexicon. Specialized term for vocabulary. Orthography. Specialized term for writing systems and spelling. The English alphabet has 26 characters. Some writing systems, such as Chinese, are not alphabetic, but have pictograms or ideograms. Morphology. How words are formed. In English, there are 3 morphemes in unthinkable: un, think, and able.
B. Other useful words for talking about language.
Many words in English are polysemous. The meaning will usually be clear from its context. Words are often used in a metaphorical way, a way that is not literal. For example, to see the light, meaning to understand something, rather than literally to see a light. Language usage inevitably changes with time. Some words become obsolete, while new words are coined. Any language has a number of different registers. Jargon is used to describe a specific type of language that is used by a particular group of people sharing a job or interest. For example, military jargon, computer jargon.
C. Using language well or badly.
Someone who uses language well can be described as articulate or eloquent. They may express something in a succinct way, and they may always be able to think of the mot juste. Someone who does not use language well can be described as inarticulate. If you are speechless or lost for words, you are so surprised that you are unable to say anything. If you put your foot in it, you say something without thinking carefully and may upset or embarrass someone.
A. History. The great and the ordinary.
Archaeologists patiently work among the remains of past civilizations, trying to understand once powerful, vast empires, kingdoms, and dynasties. Since the dawn of civilization, societies have recorded the reigns of kings and emperors, the fate of their heirs and successors, and major events such as coronations, wars, and conquests. All this can be recorded in manuscripts or on stone tablets. When an heir succeeds to the throne and is crowned, we usually learn how long he or she reigns. Meanwhile, the lives of the ordinary people, the peasants and labourers, the pattern of their days, the migrations of social groups, often go unrecorded, and archaeologists and historians have a tougher task in interpreting whatever shreds of evidence remain. But for many, this is the real history and archaeology, the true key to our past.
B. Historical eras.
In ancient Egypt, the Bronze Age began about 5,000 years ago.
Life in medieval times was hard.
I love the great Renaissance art of Italy.
Magnificent architecture and works of art were created in Central America in the pre-colonial era.
C. Military history.
Infantry, soldiers on foot. Cavalry, soldiers on horseback. Suit of armour, metal protective clothing worn by soldiers. Chariot, two-wheeled vehicle pulled by a horse and used in ancient times for racing and war. Galleon, large sailing ship with 3 or 4 masts, used in the 15th to 18th centuries.
D. People.
Warlord, a military leader who controls a country or, more often, an area within a country. Slave, person legally owned by someone else and who has to work for them. Ruler, leader of a country. Explorer, someone who travels to places that no one is thought ever to have visited in order to find out what is there. Merchant, someone who buys and sells things in large amounts, especially by trading with other countries. Monarch, neutral term for a king or queen. A country with a king or queen at its head can also be called a monarchy. The nobility, collective term for people of the highest social rank in a society.
A. Definitions of poverty.
United Nations definition. Fundamentally, poverty is a denial of choices and opportunities, a violation of human dignity. Type and aspects of poverty. Absolute poverty. Being poor according to a fixed minimum standard, sometimes called the poverty line. In 2015, people with less than $1.90 to live on a day were defined as being below the poverty line. This sum does, of course, regularly change. Relative poverty. Being poor in relation to others around you. This kind of poverty depends on a person's social context. It takes into account that there is no income equality between countries. Extreme poverty. Living below the poverty line. People living in extreme poverty will be lacking in material possessions and money. Another word for extreme poverty is penury. Human poverty. Being poor in a range of ways, not only financial. This kind of poverty takes into account such social factors as shelter, nutrition. People living in poverty are more likely to be malnourished. Literacy levels. People living in poverty are more likely to be illiterate. Sanitation. Access to education and healthcare. People lacking these basic aspects of life are said to be deprived.
B. Other expressions relating to wealth and poverty.
Most of the world's population can be classed as poor.
Only a small minority of people in the world enjoy affluence. Only a small minority of people in the world are affluent.
The super rich are people who are exceptionally rich.
It's a very poor country. Over 60% of the population live on or below the breadline.
When your income is low, it is hard to make ends meet.
Many people left the poverty-stricken countryside to go to the city.
The charity's main aim is to improve healthcare in impoverished areas of the world.
Everywhere in the city you see destitute people living in shop doorways or under bridges.
When we were first married, we were living from hand to mouth, so it's nice to be able to spend a bit more now.
Ever since I lost my job, money has been tight.
We'll have to tighten our belts now that Mum has lost her job.
Many of the people in this area are in the lowest income bracket.